Welcome to the Arizona Revival History Channel. My name is Dale Gilmore. I need to start today by saying that the Arizona Revival History Channel is based in Tucson, Arizona. You are looking at Tucson from Sentinel Peak, just west of the city. I believe that God has a destiny for every single person who is born. That is why God sends them into the world. Not everyone finds that destiny, but if a person seeks after God in their lives, He will reveal that destiny and lead them into it over time. I also believe that cities, states, and nations have destinies assigned by God. How do we discover a city's destiny? In our case, the destiny for Tucson, Arizona. There are a few things we look at. You can look at the geography of the city, first of all, where the city was placed. Secondly, you can look at the history of events that occurred in that city and see if there is a consistent theme in the events. Last of all, you can look at the leaders that formed and developed the city. You need to believe that God was sovereign in shaping the city through all these factors. In looking at Tucson, I keep getting two words from God. These words are strategic and dangerous. The impression I get is that Tucson was built for the military and for war. Let me list some of the things that shaped this observation. Number one, the formation of Tucson was by the Spanish explorers who made the city into a presidio, which is a fancy word for fort. The remains of the presidio are buried under downtown Tucson. It was the most remote of all the Spanish forts in the southwest and was strategic for protecting the O'odham Indians, the Spanish, and European settlers who came to the area. Number two, back in 1919, Tucson built an airport, which was the largest and first municipal airport in the United States. It stayed a place for civilian aircraft until 1941, when it was taken over by the military and named Davis-Montham Army Airfield. During World War II, it became a training center for pilots learning to fly bombers during the war effort. Number three, then in 1961, Tucson became a dangerous city to the world. We became one of three U.S. cities with Titan II intercontinental ballistic missiles located in 18 silos around the city. Russia and China all began to examine Tucson day and night via satellites for any sign that these rockets were being prepared to fire. The Titan IIs were armed with a 9-megaton nuclear warhead. This warhead was 600 times more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. It was the largest nuclear warhead ever created by the U.S. up to that point. If war had come, the silos around Tucson could have wiped out the capitals of 18 nations worldwide. The Titan IIs were decommissioned back in 1984. So number four, with the missile silos gone, is Tucson still a military city? The answer is yes, absolutely. Raytheon is the largest employer in the region and manufactures a variety of armament, missiles, drones, and other items used in warfare. You are looking at video taken outside the gates of Raytheon's headquarters. Northrop Grumman and Honeywell are also defense contractors with large presences here in Tucson. In fact, Tucson, Arizona hosts a significant aerospace and defense sector with over 200 companies in the ecosystem working in those fields. The final evidence of the physical call on the city, number 5, is seen in an area called the Boneyard, not far from Davis-Montham Air Force Base. Off and on between 4,000 and 4,400 airplanes from all branches of the armed forces are stored on 2,600 acres of land. The planes are stored for parts and are on standby in case they may be needed in the future. It is the world's largest military airplane storage area in the world. So, if the military is a physical call on Tucson from its founding to the present, what is its spiritual call? There is an adage that says, first the physical, then the spiritual. In other words, the physical gives clues to us about the spiritual. Jesus says in the Lord's Prayer, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven." In other words, the two are meant to be connected. What we see in the physical should be more or less true in the spiritual. So please allow me to extrapolate some of the seen things here in Tucson into the spiritual about this city. First of all, I believe the word strategic and dangerous apply to what Tucson will become in the spiritual. There is a spiritual warfare call on this city to war in the heavenlies against the world's biggest enemy, Satan and his hosts. This is first seen in a call to be a city of prayer for Tucson, yes, for Arizona also, yes, but also for the entire United States. We don't see this movement yet in its fullness, but there are prayer groups forming across this region. A recent report on YouTube examining the top 10 locations where Christians in America were moving to in the U.S. found that Arizona was in the top 10, and the influx of people was not just to Phoenix, but also Tucson, Flagstaff, Prescott, and other cities. This influx means there will be more churches forming where prayer will be sent forth into the heavenlies. Tucson is meant to be a strategic part of the prayer force to clear the spiritual skies over our state and over the United States. Besides that, we are also going to be a launching pad for dangerous people going all over the world as missionaries with the gospel of salvation in Jesus Christ. Instead of launching warheads with 9 megatons of destruction, we are going to be sending missiles of the gospel of Christ that heal and save. I believe Tucson is called to be a major missions sending area. We have access to the north, the south, east, and west. We have an international airport. We already have a large missions contingent in Mexico and Central and South America. Satan's plans to keep the areas around us imprisoned in sin and sickness are going to be bombed by the truth of the Bible and the power of the Holy Spirit. Now, when you think of the military, you think of war and destruction. But God has also indicated in several ways that He wants Tucson and the region around here to be a place of health and healing. There's an interesting documented story that goes back to before the founding of this nation. Sometime between the years 1527 and 1537, a Spanish conquistador ended up a prisoner with some Native Americans in what is now Texas. The man's name was Cabeza de Vaca. He was from Spain and had been raised Catholic, but was trained in the military. Being held as a prisoner by Indians, he was under obligation to do what they wanted. Now, when someone in the Indian camp got sick, the shaman would go through his procedures to bring healing to the individual. But the shaman started to demand that Cabeza do the same things. Cabeza scoffed at the practices of the shaman, but the Indians began to withhold food from him until he complied. Finally, out of sheer hunger, he and those with him decided to do things over the sick people in the camp. Now, being Catholic, he knew the Lord's Prayer, so he recited that over the people. He recited the Ave Maria over them, and then prayed to God for them, and concluded by making the sign of the cross over them. And surprise of all surprises, people started to get healed by Cabeza's ministry. He developed a reputation as a healer, and traveled with Indian tribes west through what is now New Mexico into Arizona, traveling to areas not far from Bisbee and Sierra Vista, Arizona. Centuries later, we know that A. Allen began Miracle Valley in that same region, ministering healing to thousands of people, and later William Branham, another healing evangelist, came and lived in Tucson in the years before his death in the 1960s. So what is God telling us as we look at the history of Tucson? In conclusion, this is my perspective on God's call on Tucson. We are to be a spiritual military warring in the heavenlies, clearing out demonic resistance to the gospel. We will also be sending men and women and families that are going to preach and teach the gospel and demonstrate the power of the Holy Spirit. The power of God is going to envelop huge areas of the world directly influenced by missionaries and materials sent from Tucson. And finally, I believe this place is to be a place of healing. The healing ministry is going to be restored in this region more powerfully than ever before. Now, granted, we don't see much of any of this right now, but just wait and see what God does for the city of Tucson. I think we'll all be happily surprised. Well, that is all for today. I'd love your feedback on this and other videos on the channel. You can send them to ArizonaRevivalHistory@gmail.com. That's ArizonaRevivalHistory@gmail.com. Well, until next time, this is Dale Gilmore praying that we all would be given direction on how to pray for our city and our state. May God bless you all richly.